this sport is really different to other sports because you never know what's gonna happen. It's you're competing in like nature, so you don't know exactly when the wave is gonna come. I beat him, and then we surfed in Sunset in Hawaii, and he beat me, and then we surfed in Portugal, and he beat me. So it was like really fun. But in the end, we were like laughing because we were going against each other all the time. So there is rivalry sometimes, but in this sport, like I told you, we're so many surfers that you're not competing against the same guy all the time. Sometimes you don't like places because you haven't done well there in competitions, but that doesn't mean that the place is bad. It's just you that you haven't found a way of surfing those waves. Before competing in there, I was like super exciting. I was like, I want to do this already. I want to go in the water and compete just because it was the first Olympics.
Hello, and welcome to another legendary episode of Stripping and Dipping with your usual co-host AMG Dance. And what can I say? I'm trying to ride the waves of success, but our special guest actually rides waves professionally as one of the lead surfers and have participated in the Summer Olympic Games as well, representing Peru. So, without further ado, I have the legendary and the one and only Lucca Mesinas. Bro, how are you keeping? And where are you calling from in the world right now? We're really intrigued to know.
Hello, how are you? Thanks for the invitation. Well, I'm calling from California right now. I'm in California. I'm training and getting prepared for one of the Challenger Series competition of the World Surf League. So yeah, I'm here. Like I told you, getting ready for the comp. Starts Saturday, so getting everything prepared for that.
Man, that's super exciting, man. And I'm sure you're enjoying the lovely Californian sun and the weather out there too, for sure. But Luca, it'd be interesting, I think, for all of our fans to know as well about you, like how your career in surfing began, just where the love and the passion grew. And I wanted to kind of start it straight from the beginning. So we know that you're from Peru, and we also know that you grew up in the fishing town of Mancora. But how did this influence your entry into the world of surfboarding, and what were your earliest memories?
Well, I started surfing mostly because both of my parents surf, my dad and mom. And Mancora is like a really small town. That it's like a sunny town. Like there's always sun, the water is nice, and the waves are really good too. So both my dad and mom just started teaching me to surf when I was like probably like 6, 7 years old. I lived like pretty close to the beach too, like just walking. And I don't know, like every day the only thing we liked is just going to the beach, either to surf or just hang out at the beach and being with my friends. So that's how everything started, like as a fun sport. And then maybe when I was like 10 years old, that's when first competition, like national competition, came to Mancora in northern Peru. And that's when I started competing for the first time. And I really liked the competition because I don't know, it comes from my family.
So, Luca, we were really fascinated to kind of hear from you a moment ago that, you gained your earliest memories and experiences, surfboarding with your parents, which is super fascinating as well. Like, a lead question I wanted to kind of go back into in relation to that was, did your parents compete at all, like surfing, or for them, was it more just like a casual kind of hobby they did, and then you were the one which took it to the next level?
Well, my dad and mom, like my mom didn't compete at all, and she just did it for passion. She loved surfing. She still loves surfing. And then my dad kind of competed in a couple competitions where I'm from, but he was never like as a competitor like I am. So I think both of them both didn't like the competition part. They just like surfing for fun and enjoying it. Even my sister surfs too, and my sister started competing when she was young, and then she didn't like it at all. So I'm pretty much the only one who is competing in the family.
Wow, that's incredible, man, and really inspiring too to hear that, you know. And in relation to the competitive aspect of it as well, Luca, could for somebody that doesn't know so much about surfing or how the competitions are run, how is a surfboarding competition judged? You know, what is the criteria? How do you score points or beat your fellow competitive surfers, for example?
Well, most of the time you go out to surf in a heat for 25 minutes or sometimes half an hour. Usually it's a four-man heat, so you're competing against three other guys in my position, and then you can catch as many waves you want. But of course, you gotta be selective, no, and try to catch the best waves that are coming. This sport is really different to other sports because you never know what's gonna happen. You know, you're competing in like nature, so you don't know exactly when the wave is gonna come or where it's gonna come and everything. So that's a really fun part of surfing. And then, like I told you, you can catch as many waves you want, and then it depends on how good your wave was, how good you surf it. Like usually the judges are looking for like big waves and big maneuvers like airs or like big turns with throwing a lot of water. They like also like variety of maneuvers, so you do like different types of maneuvers in the same wave. They love that a lot. And yeah, and they score the wave from 0 to 10. No, 10 is the best you can get and 0 the worst. And yeah, that's how surfing is judged. And like I told you, you can catch a lot of waves. And there's also priority. Priority is like when you get to the lineup, like the first one to get to the lineup back is the one that has first priority, and then second, third, and fourth priority. So that means like if you have first priority, you can catch whatever, like any wave that comes. And yeah, and then second priority catches the second wave pretty much. So that's kind of how it works. It's a hard sport to understand sometimes, but once you start watching it and actually like seeing everything, you will understand easy.
Wow, that's super fascinating to learn as well from you, Luca. And absolutely, for a lot of our listeners and stuff like that, it will be the first time, I guess, that they've been exposed, to this amazing and very extreme sport, of course. And just to kind of learn from you as well, just how the judges go about marking the waves, and also to appreciate how unique the sport is in a sense. So, guys, thank you for bearing us with this podcast. We've had a few technical issues with the network, but nothing that will ever hold us back. So, yeah, we're gonna go straight back into this interview with the amazing Lucca Mesinas, and here we go. So, Luca, I think just before we had the disconnection as well, you were giving me a really fascinating insight just into how, the sport is, just how the sport is judged by the officials. And essentially, it's based on like what waves a surfer can catch, the way that the surfer was able to control the wave and able to ride and do different tricks and kind of, interesting waves and stuff like that as well, which is very fascinating for our listeners at home. But just in relation to, preparing yourself for competitions, because you mentioned that you've even got one coming up very soon as well, Luca. How do you train and do you prepare yourself for such an extreme sport, on the physical aspect of it, but also mentally as well?
Well, I love to do. I do like little camps. Well, surfing is an sport that we have a lot of events in the year. So we're probably completing like maybe 15 events a year. So we have to be traveling a lot all the time. And whenever I have like maybe like a month of no competition, or maybe 2 months of no competition, I love to have like training camps. Like I usually come to here to California to train. I train maybe like 4 hours in the morning, like in the water with my coach, working on technique and stuff, trying to get better in every aspect of surfing. And then usually I go maybe 2 hours to the gym and try to surf again too. Depends on how tired I feel that day. But usually it's like that. I surf for 4 hours, train at the gym for 2 hours, and surf for 2 other hours more. And that's pretty much. I surf every day of the week. So from Monday to Sunday, I'm surfing every day. Just the days that I don't go to there's some days that I don't go to the gym. I maybe go for like 4 to 5 days a week to the gym. And then you have to stretch a lot too. Like you have to stretch your body because surfing is a sport that you have to be really flexible. And in the mentally part, I work with psychologists too, like sports psychologists a lot, because surfing is a lot about that, like the mental part. You have to be mentally strong to be able to go everywhere in the world and competing, because sometimes you imagine I'm from Peru, and sometimes I have to go all the way to Australia or all the way to Japan and compete there, and sometimes waves don't come to you in your heat, and I mean, you were prepared, but the waves didn't come, so you lose, and then there's no second chances. You lose in the first round, you're out of the event, so you have to go all the way back to your home after a really long flight and everything. And sometimes that you have to be really mentally strong to accept that and just keep going and trying to getting better. So yeah, it's a lot of mental stuff, training in the gym and training in the water. So it's hard, but I love it. I love surfing. I love going to the gym too, and I love working my mind to be strong.
Well, Luca, like what you mentioned there is so inspiring, and I think a lot of us can take those things you mentioned as well. Because, as you mentioned, traveling alone, puts a lot of fatigue on the mind and also the body as well when you're having to acclimatize to different environments, different weathers, different time zones as well, like you mentioned. And then man, it sounds very brutal too. So like if you don't do well in the first round, then basically it compromises you for the following rounds, and you might not be able to win, or it puts you at compromise as well. So it's very interesting, and I'm glad that you touched kind of on the mental side as well as the physical. To kind of like go deeper into this question as well, Luca. Like when you train and you're at the beach and you're at the waves and stuff like that too. Like how much of it would you say is more just like the physical conditioning and the staying fit? How much of it would you say is the actual technique, of being able to balance and, perfect certain tricks or techniques and stuff like that, when you're out there?
Well, I think both of them are really really important. Physically, you gotta be prepared all the time, because when you're training, I'm telling you, I'm surfing for 6 hours, and 6 hours of being in the water is a lot. So if you are not really trained physically, you can start surfing bad, in your trainings, and that's what you don't want. You want to surf good in all your trainings and trying to improve, no, all the time. Uh, Same with the technique, you have to be strong to do all types of maneuvers and like land them good and have the balance to land them and not falling, So I believe like both parts are really good. So that's why we have to go to the gym a lot and practice a lot of balance stuff and being quick too, because waves sometimes close really fast. So you have to be really quick to do a couple maneuvers before it closes out. So yeah, I think both of them are really important. So that's why we go to the gym, train a lot, and that's why we don't only have to go to the gym. So we have to eat good and have all the energy that we need for like those trainings, And when the comp comes, you are like 100% prepared for everything,
Absolutely, and like you mentioned there too, practice makes perfect, and conditioning yourself, to be able to perform and be able to, basically get the maximum performance, at the top level is so key, in what you guys do. And there's a lot of bravery involved in it too, which brings me on to the next question as well for you, Luca, is do you have any fears at all? Like, and could you give our listeners at home maybe an example of like maybe a competition or a challenge in relation to surfing that you found very difficult at the time, and how did you overcome such a challenge or difficulty?
Well, yeah, I think we all have fears. There's two different types of fears. Surfing gives you a fear also when the waves are really big. So because it's a stream sport, so you can get hurt really easy. So that's the first one that you fear, no? When you're surfing really big waves and you're kind of in the water, so you don't know what's gonna happen. But at the same time, it's kind of like a good fear, because it makes you like realize that uh, you're living like in the present, and it makes you like be really like active, like you're thinking a lot about what you're doing, and you don't want to fail, or you don't want to do anything bad, so you're like live in the moment. So that's kind of like a good fear. Like there's been many times where I've been competing and the waves have been really big, and I'm scared, no, of the waves, but I gotta do it, and that's when you overcome your fears, and that's a really good feeling. And then there is fears of also of like not doing well, or like not performing like you wanted, or like stuff like that, that comes with mental stuff. So that's why I was telling you that you gotta be strong for anything. You pretty much you have to think about like you just gotta go and do your best. The result doesn't matter. If you did your best is the most important thing. So that's how I think, so yeah, there's those two types of fears, but you gotta overcome them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you on that one as well, Luca. And it's key just to have that kind of frame of mind because, like you mentioned, there's a lot of things in life that don't go the way you expect them to, or you might already have like a pre kind of set that like mindset that you're gonna do like this particular role, or you're going to achieve this particular target, or so forth. But like you mentioned, especially with surfing, which I find fascinating, as you mentioned, is the waves are not all the same. Like there's no kind of predetermined way you can fully kind of simulate that, because it's just based on nature, and basically like being able to have the skill and the competency and the confidence, to be able to overcome all the obstacles and to be able to perform at that level as well. So it's really exciting to hear that, and also reassuring for a lot of our listeners at home, because in all walks of life, I think that same mindset you mentioned as well, if you can apply yourself to do something, and even if you don't completely get the maximum you are aiming to get out of it, if you know that you've put your best foot forward and you've not left any stones unturned, then it gives you that confidence to know that you did your best. Whereas I feel a lot of people, you've probably seen this as well, Luca, like in life, some people, they do things like halfway, or they don't like fully train or practice, or they're not as dedicated. And then, for example, when it comes to like the big kind of moment where they need to perform, then it's more challenging for them to do, or they have like a sense of regret, because they know that if they had spent an extra day, they know if they had like prepared themselves maybe better, made the sacrifices they needed to, then they may have been in a better position. So I absolutely agree with what you just mentioned there as well, and I think it's really key too. And then another question for you as well, Luca, is like how competitive is the surfboarding scene in Peru itself? And could you describe the process of like basically you having the honor to represent your own country? Because that, I think as well, Luca, is like a huge, huge, huge achievement. We really have to give you a lot of praise for that, because there's so many people that like to do these things, or it's their dream one day to like represent their country, and you've done something which a lot of people will look up and aspire to achieve someday as well. So could you walk our listeners through that experience as well?
Yeah, I think surfing in Peru is growing a lot. It's a small sport for sure. I feel like all like maybe South America is a lot about soccer, football, and these kind of sports like surfing and other sports are like really small in the beginning. So they're growing a lot by being in the Olympics, by being like in the world stage, and more people are starting to watch this sport, and more people is like enjoying it, not doing it. So in Peru, is growing a lot. A lot of people is surfing now. A lot of kids are starting to be good, and they're trying to be like maybe like me, or like the past best surfers from Peru. So for me, it's like a really that thing is like a really inspirational thing. Like one of my goals always is to represent my country in the best way, and to inspire like some of the future generations, like that are coming from Peru, surfers. So yeah, like I told you, like every time I go to compete in any kind of event, I'm trying to compete in the best way and trying to represent my country in the best way, and trying to inspire all the kids that are coming from my country, to so they can see how I did it, and maybe they can be like me, or they can be even better, So yeah, I think for like an athlete, that's always like a goal, to try to inspire the next generation.
Exactly, exactly. And I think you lead by example, Luca, because what you've achieved already is phenomenal, and I think a lot of people would envy you to be in your position for sure. And also, like touching on representing your country as well, and taking part in the Olympics, which we'll do a deeper dive of as well. Like, could you give us insight into how you got selected to represent your country, and just that experience as well?
Yeah, well, I qualify in two events. The first event I qualified for the Olympics was in the Pan American Games, and they were actually in Peru. They were called Lima 2019. So that event was in Lima, and it was a really nice event with a lot of people. We were lucky that that event was at home, so we knew a lot the wave, and I actually won the gold medal. So that made my qualification for the Olympics. And then there is a lot of ways of qualifying for the Olympics. The other one was World Games, the ISA World Games, and I actually got in the ranking to qualify from that too. So I qualified twice for the Olympics for Tokyo, and the experience was amazing. In general, like being in the Olympics for the first time surfing, and going actually with a full team because we were two guys and two girls from Peru, and experiencing like everything there is about the Olympics, because I stay in the Olympic village with all the athletes of the world, and just being there with everyone and just seeing how everyone was so focused. Like one of the things that made like impressed me a lot was like the Olympic gym. When I
Mm.
went there, like I saw like everyone like training for the sports, and it was like really really cool to be there and training, with all the best athletes in the world. So I think just the Olympics in general is something that is going to be in my heart for forever, and it's one of the best experience of my life. That's for sure.
Oh, I could imagine, Luca, it's like a one in a lifetime opportunity, and the thing that is amazing with you is you earned it. You went through all the ranks. You mentioned as well that you had to go through these qualifying kind of rounds as well just to even get to that stage. And I think it's a huge reminder to all of our listeners and even the younger kids as well that, if you show dedication, you show practice, and you put, yourself forward, and have the right mindset, and you believe in yourself, then these things are very possible. So I'm very glad to hear that that experience would have been so life changing, and as well as that to see other athletes from different parts of the world, but again competing for the same thing, you can almost appreciate in that sense too. So we'll come back to the Olympics there, Luca, but another interesting facet we wanted to explore with you as well is like rivalries, and like even just going against your fiercest rivals. So the question I wanted to ask you, Loco, was like, yeah, like who would you say was like your like fiercest rival? Currently or even growing up, in Peru. And was there anything that you feel that you learned from them competing up against them, or traveling to different countries and stuff like that too?
Well, I think I have more like rivals when I was like a young kid, when I was doing my division, like maybe like under 12, under 14, under 16. In Peru we were not many surfers, so we were only maybe like four kids competing for the nationals. So there was a lot of rivalry over there. Like we were like trying to compete against each other and trying to improve. And maybe that's more when I had a lot of library because I was seeing the same person all the time. Right now, like the tour that we do, we're like 96 guys, so you're competing against different guys in each event, and you're not competing all the time against the same person, so it's really hard to have a rivalry against one athlete or one person. But still, like when you go out and compete in the World Surf League Tour, you just want to beat everyone, like even if you don't know him that much, or even if you know him, like that doesn't matter. Like you just want to beat them, and you just want to make your hit, and you just want to and try and win the event, so it's good to have a rivalry and just fit from that, and trying to improve. And next time, and the same thing when they beat you, you just want to improve and have another chance against them, and just trying to beat them the next time. I actually had this year, like in the tour, I had a guy that I compete him maybe against him like maybe like four times in four different events. So we were actually like laughing in the end because it actually that never happens. Like I told you, because we're so many guys, never happens to you competing against the same guy. So this guy is Colo Andino, and we surf in pipe in Hawaii, and I beat him, and then we surf in Sunset in Hawaii, and he beat me, and then we surf in Portugal, and he beat me. So it was like really fun, but in the end we were like laughing because we were going against each other all the time. So uh, there is rivalry sometimes, but in this sport, like I told you, we're so many surfers that you're not competing against the same guy all the time, you know.
It's really fascinating to kind of learn as well, Luca, because like you mentioned there, like it gives you kind of almost a new dimension, like a new element, because in most sports you'll come across the same people, and it can almost become quite monotonous, or you almost learn your opponent in that regard as well, or maybe you try to learn their style, or you try to take kind of things from them that are unique or they're really good at. But like you mentioned, kind of with the very unique nature of surfing, for every competition you participate in, there's bound to be like new faces, people from all different parts of the world, and also probably you think I'll ask you next, even just different people from different age groups as well, So that keeps it
Mhm.
fascinating. But then, like you also mentioned, if you do happen to have one particular like rival or like somebody that you keep bumping into each competition as well, I can see that being really interesting as well, because like every event you go to is going to be slightly bespoke or slightly different. But then I guess the competition then kind of relates to like who is the overall better surfer, or who's the most adaptable surfer in all these different competitions, and the different conditions as well. So yeah, that's really intriguing to actually learn from you too, and kind of piggybacking on a point I made there too. What would you say is like the age gap in surfing too? Because it definitely seems like it's a more young man sport. I would definitely say that, but it's an interesting one because in some sports like Formula One or football, we're seeing like drivers or athletes kind of go for a really long period of time and have like long careers. Is that a common thing in surfers? Like, what would you say is the average like length of career in terms of years for a surfer?
Well, I think uh, the youngest you can start like competing at the tour is like most of the guys, like the youngest is like when they're 18. I think that's the youngest they can go. Like when they're 18, they maybe go into tour and they compete against the other guys. But usually like the guys that are like doing, they are in their prime is like around 25 years old or around that age. And then you can still do this sport until maybe like 35 or even a little more, but it depends of how good you've been like training, on how good you've been eating and everything. Because I don't know if you know Kelly Slater. Kelly Slater is still on tour and he's 50. Yeah, I think he's
Wow.
50. So he's still beating the best guys in the world. He's 50 years old and he's still on tour and he's not falling out of tour. So it depends on you. I think that's the most important thing. Like if you're eating healthy and you're training a lot and you keep like focus, you can do this sport for a long time. And he's an example. I think he wants to qualify for the next Olympics and being the oldest like athlete on being on the Olympics, I think, or something like that. But he's like an amazing athlete, and he's like 50 years old and he keeps beating all the young kids and all the best guys in the world. So I don't think age is it matters much. It depends on how good you train and how good you eat and how good you get your focus. No.
I would agree with you. It's so true. And again, it's that like longevity. If you're good to your body, if you put in the kind of right works and you dedicate yourself, to well-being and fitness, then what's nice about the kind of world we live in now is that there's a lot of research, there's a lot of scientific data. People are living longer, and people, in most cases, are getting healthier too. So, it's incredible to hear about Kelly Slater. And whilst you're talking about him, I actually just was checking out like him on Wikipedia too, and that's incredible. Like 50 years old, and he's still trying to compete, and like you said, he's beating young kids as well. And I think from like a fan's perspective too, that must be quite a popular thing as well. To have like maybe somebody that's very experienced and like one of like the greatest guys of his generation, and yet still he's challenging like the younger ones. Is that pretty much the case, Luca? Would you say?
Yeah, I think it's unbelievable. Like he's an 11 times champion. So he's been competing against so many different generations that it's actually like crazy, like when he won like one of his first titles, I wasn't even born, so and this year I got to compete against him in Pipeline in Hawaii, and that was like one of the best experience of my life, because everyone wants to compete against him because he's the 11-time world champion, and he's 50 years old and he's still like winning events and doing these things. So I think a lot of people, like you were saying, like get inspired by this. And I see a lot of comments like on social media and stuff, and most of the people taking like, "Hey, don't leave anytime because you inspire me right now." Like I'm like this is for other people, like they're like 45 and they sometimes feel like they're getting old, but then they see this crazy guy Kelly Slater like competing and beating a lot of guys, and they feel inspired by that for sure.
Absolutely, and it makes all the reason, all the sense as well, because it just goes to show that like a lot of what we see is kind of the mental aspect of it, and if you believe you can do it and you're willing to be dedicated and to put the time into it and the graft, and you take all the precautions you mentioned as well, like it's possible. And it's so awesome to really see how that works out, even in like an extreme sport like surfing as well, where like for an outsider like me, I would have thought that the career would have probably been, not so long. But to see that actually it's a thing which is becoming more expansive, and people are doing it more longer and so forth as well, it's really intriguing to see that. So I'm fascinated. And we'll make a bit of a U-turn as well here, Luke. I know the conversation's kind of going from A to B, but it's just the nature of this show today. But I wanted to kind of go back as well to your Olympic experience. So you kind of set the scene earlier where you mentioned, being in the Olympic Park and being amongst other athletes, and this that camaraderie, of being with other high-level athletes like yourself all in one place, is incredible. But when it actually came to competition day, like, do you ever have like any rituals or any kind of like practices that you do before a big event like this? And we also touched on like nerves and kind of like the mental aspect of it, but how do you deal with like not getting nervy and not like like letting the occasion get to you when it's such a big one in a lifetime thing like this?
Well, I think I learned about the nerve and all of that stuff a long time ago. I'm 26 years old now, and for sure I had nerves when I was like 18, 17. But then you compete so much, and then you experience everything that by the time you are like, I don't know, 22 or older, like you start learning, and you don't feel nervous anymore. I actually enjoy it, like, which is the opposite. Like every like having the chance to compete at the Olympics, I was like, before competing in there, I was like super exciting. I was like, I want to do this already. I want to go in the water and compete, just because it was the first Olympics, the first surfing Olympics. So it was like a actually something nice, not something that you have to get nervous about. So usually when I compete in big events, I like to listen to music. I listen to a lot of music just to get motivated because I love music. So I listen a lot of music. I warm up a lot. Like I do a lot of stretches, a lot of exercise before going and paddling out. And then something that we do too is like we analyze the ocean a lot. Like maybe like 40 minutes before your heat, before you're gonna start competing. So yeah, that kind of stuff. I also mentally I also work like telling myself a lot of motivation words to myself and all of that stuff, but nothing really crazy. I don't have like anything that I always do, like other sports. I seen like I don't know in tennis, all the guys like they like to like touch their cap or like they do a lot of different things that I don't do. I just listen to music. I get prepared. I get really focused. I stretch. I doing my exercises, and I just want to go in the water and have fun and give my best. So yeah, in the Olympics, that's how I took it. Like I was really excited to be there. So I didn't have any nerves. I was just enjoying the moment of being there.
And I think that's the really key part to take away from just everything amazing you just explained there as well, Luca, because that's the thing, with an occasion like that, it's such a rarity, and you like I keep like bigging you up and saying as well, you have to be amazing, you have to be incredible at what you do to get to that stage as well, where you can go and like represent and honor your country in a situation like that too. So I agree with your mindset and your approach to it too, that you don't let the occasion kind of like get to you. And in a sense too, I don't think if you worry about things all the time, and if you have that kind of like stress, that you might make a mistake, or that you're overthinking about the occasion, then when you look back on it as well, you don't enjoy it as much, because you spent half of the time kind of being really worried about what the outcome could be, or kind of like these things which beyond a certain stage they're out of your control. So I think that's a really important and key thing for our listeners to take away from that as well. And touching on the other kind of like miscellaneous kind of points of the Olympic experience as well, Luca, I wanted to ask you, like, are you going to be preparing and training and looking forward to participating again in the Olympics for Peru? Like, when would the next Olympics be for, like, water sports and in particular surfing?
So the next Olympics are in Paris. Is Paris 2024, but actually surfing is not gonna be in France. It's gonna be in Tahiti, in one of the waves that are called Teahupo. It's one of the best waves in the world, and it's a really heavy wave too. So that's where surfing is gonna be. So yeah, my goal is to qualify again, and same as the last Olympics, we have the same kind of qualification. So the next Pan American Games are gonna be in Santiago next year, which is Chile. So that's gonna be give one spot for men's and one spot for women's to qualify for the Olympics. So yeah, that's the goal. I wanna go to Santiago 2023 and do my best, try to get a gold medal and qualify for the Olympics again, no? Because I really want to surf the next Olympics and I really want to represent my country again.
Well, look, you're absolutely deserving of the opportunity, and definitely from here, us on the podcast as well, we're looking forward to supporting you, and we'd love to see you there as well, because you're a deserving guy, and we could see that you're super passionate, you're enthusiastic about what you do, and that's half the key anyway, along with the hard work and dedication, to get you to the next stage. So we'll definitely be following you and looking forward to that as well. In terms of other miscellaneous questions, we actually got one's actually from the boss, Georgina, which is also in the background of this recording. She wanted me to ask you, like, what was the Olympic food like, and do you have any favorite like foods and cuisines generally? As a cheeky question.
That's a funny one. Well, in like I told you, I was staying in the Olympic Village, so we had like a big area of like dining, and eating, and you actually had a lot of options. Like there was food for a lot of places in the world, so you could eat like Japanese food, you could eat like just Italian food, like pasta and stuff, or like just there was a lot of food, so you could choose like anything, But of course, by the days that they were going, like after like 2 weeks, of course you were tired of the kind of the same food all the time. But I actually think they did a really good job because they had so many options to eat, like from chicken, meat, fish, Japanese cuisine. Like they had Asian too. They had a lot of stuff, which was really good. So I think the food was pretty good in Japan.
Oh, I could imagine. I'm just sitting here thinking about it now. Just the plethora of food and the different options, and that's amazing as well. Just to have that opportunity and the experiences to try different things, and to obviously encompass that experience as well, which is quite key. And generally speaking as well, Luca, like, do surfers have like a particular diet? Because I know obviously bodybuilders have a particular diet, even Formula One drivers and pilots have a specific kind of like thing they stick to. Is it similar in a way for like surfers? Is there like a particular like food regime or carbs or kind of certain things you avoid or you try to promote in your diet?
Well, I don't think we have like a really really strict diet like maybe in other sports, because in most of the sports like your weight matters a lot. So surfing is like you gotta find your weight and you gotta be in your weight, and you make your boards because of how much you weigh and everything. So you always are, of course, trying to be in the same weight all the time. And like I was telling you, you're trying to eat as healthy as you can, just to have the energy of performing, so you can perform good in your trainings and competitions. So I actually don't have like a diet, like a specific diet, but for sure, like from traveling and learning, I've been I'm always trying to eat like the best I can, like trying to eat as healthy as I can, and just like I told you, so I can perform good and everything. So, but it's not like I have like a strict diet of what I have to eat every day.
That's interesting, and I think actually it probably would make me want to become a surfboarder even more because you're not like caged to eat the same thing like rice and beans probably every single day, because
Mm.
it's good to have like a variety, it like as you mentioned too, as long as it's not impacting kind of your kind of ability to be agile and to do the kind of things you need to do as well, then it's nicer to have. And I think whereas some people might be put off from surfing because it's scary generally and it's quite an extreme sport, I think some people would get encouragement knowing that at least you get variety in terms of the food and the dieting as well. So yeah, and whilst I've got you here as well, Luca, like Georgina's like sending me messages frantically asking the magical question I usually save towards the end of the podcast. So I might as well ask you it since we're on the topic of food. She's asked Luca, pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Pineapple on pizza? No, it's a no for me.
Thank you as well for saying that, Luca. Because I
No,
was gonna say,
I'm also like a little bit Italian, so I just like my pizza really simple. Like I usually go for cheese and prosciutto.
and I think that's a perfect blend too. Like, and I'm
Yeah,
thankful you mentioned that as well. Like, Georgina makes me ask that to nearly all the guests. I'm like, one of these days you're gonna get me punched by like one of the Italian guests, because it's just like, who does that? Why on earth would you spoil something so sacred like a
exactly.
pizza?
Yeah. Yes.
So it's okay. But no, I mean, that's interesting. And Luca, like, what I also want to do with this opportunity as well is get to learn more about you as well, and kind of what you do outside of the surfboarding. So, first question is like, what are your hobbies outside of the sport?
Well, uh, when I'm home, that's when I'm doing the most hobbies I can. So I like to do Muay Thai, which is like fighting, and then I like to spearfish a lot with my dad too when I'm home. It's really nice. I'm actually trying to start playing golf, because I think it's a really nice sport, but I'm not good yet. And then I like to play ping pong a lot too. I just when I'm not surfing, I'm trying to do other sports just to learn them, and trying to be good in other sports. I actually like to play soccer too a lot, football. When I'm home with my friends, we play like games and everything, so it's pretty fun.
That's interesting. And you talked about like the Muay Thai as well, like the kickboxing. Do you find that it's like I wouldn't say a distraction, but like another outlet, where you can release your energy and it also keeps you fit in that regard as well?
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the sports that I like to do, because it keeps you like really fit and gives you speed too. Like when you're training a lot Muay Thai, I feel like you have to be fast. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons why I like to train a sport, and also because where I'm from, like, is Muay Thai is pretty big. Like a lot of guys do Muay Thai, so I don't know. I got introduced to that when I was younger, so I like the sport. So I start doing it every time I go home and stuff like that. So yeah, I like the sport a lot.
That's interesting. And another thing you mentioned there as well is, the fishing with your dad, which is it's interesting because you grew up in Mancora as well. Could you talk about like, the fishing culture there as well, and like what's it like? Because again, I've never actually been fishing either, so I've always just listened to other people's experiences, and I've always said it's something I'd like to do, but I never got quite around to doing it in England. So yeah, could you talk more about that too?
Yeah, I think like where I'm from is a lot about fishing. Like a lot of the like population, a lot of the people that live in the north of Peru, mostly not only my towns, just the towns that are around there too. They live out of like fishing, and going out with boats and getting fish. So that's a really big thing for where I am from. And then uh, but I like the way I like to fish is just with the spear fishing. So I go, like you're going down with a gun and just getting
Hmm.
the fish you want for that you're gonna eat later, in the day. So I also enjoy that because it's really good, like for apnea, like you're breathing really good and you're like holding your breath under the water, which is gonna help me anyways when I'm surfing. So yeah, it's I think that sport is pretty fun too, and like you say, like I'm from a fishing place, which is the water is really nice, it's really clear. There's a lot of fish too, so it's really nice to do that kind of things.
Ah, it's intriguing, and you kind of touched there as well on the transferable skills of, being able to hold your breath underwater, and also just, like being able to kind of be agile and move around in the water as well. So it's quite key. And another thing, on the topic of getting to know you more as a person as well, Luca, and our fans learning about you too. You set the scene when you said you're in the Olympic Village and, you had your headphones on and you're enjoying the music. If there was like five artists in your playlist that you could only listen to those five artists or five songs for the rest of your life, like which artists slash songs would you pick for your playlist?
So I don't know if in your country they listen to this kind of music, but it's pretty big in South America and Central America. We listen a lot to reggaeton. It's kind of getting big,
Oh,
like
yeah,
in the world
absolutely.
too.
Hmm.
So yeah, if I have to choose artists from like that I like to listen, most of them will be like from the reggaeton. Like Bad Bunny, Ro Alejandro. I have there's a lot, but I also like singers from the United States, like I don't know, like Drake, Post Malone. Uh, those guys are pretty good too. So I kind of like when I'm listening music, I kind of try to like choose variety. Like I kind of like to listen to that kind of stuff, like rap and stuff like that, and then also like reggaeton, which is like kind of like the rap but in Spanish. So yeah, for sure, if I have to choose like five artists, it will be like maybe Drake, Post Malone, and like Bad Bunny. I don't know, Ro Alejandro and Jay Cortez or Mike Towers. Those guys.
That's interesting, and it's great as well that you've got such like what we'd say eclectic style. It's not like one kind of like genre of music. It's like a selection of different styles, different like tastes and stuff like that too. And it must be interesting, because you probably have certain music that you like listening to, which might calm you down or like get you very hyped and motivated, before you go out there and surf. And there's probably some which are more chilled, and just like either when you're training or trying to just get in the zone as well before a workout too. So it's amazing, how music can transcend so many different things, and particularly in this instance as well, just you with the surfing, but also in your own downtime as well, just enjoying and chilling out as well, which is really nice. So absolutely. And then another thing I wanted to like ask you as well, Luca, is like, we've been talking about the sport of surfing and just how amazing it is and its evolution, through time as well. Would you say there's like one particular surfer within like the surf community you'd say has like revolutionized the sport, or like done something unique that will go remembered for a long time? I know you mentioned Kelly earlier as well, but are there any other examples of people like that as well that we could follow or learn from too?
Well, like you say, I think the first person that is always gonna come to my mind is Kelly Slater, uh, just because of everything he has done in the sport, being a 11 world title champion. I don't think is that's really common. Like doesn't happen in many sports. So I think that's kind of crazy. And but then there's been guys that are like from the new generation, like maybe in surfing, like Gabriel Medina. I think I'm a really big fan of Gabriel Medina. He's a guy from Brazil. He's a three-time world champion, and I feel like he's doing like really crazy stuff when he's surfing too, like doing like huge maneuvers and stuff like that. So he's making for sure the sport look like really nice and really big. So for me, he would be like the second guy, to watch.
Oh, okay, well, I mean, that's a lot of insight for our listeners to check out as well. And, it makes it very interesting to just see that there's so many different styles and different accolades in surfing as well. So you've got the guys which are kind of renowned for doing the big moves that look very flashy on the camera, or impress the judges. But then also you've got like the guys which have just done exceptionally well throughout their entire career. And like you mentioned, 11 championships is insane. For a person to win one championship is a huge achievement, because the amount of like time, dedication, hard work that goes into building that journey is enough, and for then somebody to do that 11 times is even more sensational. So a lot of insight there as well, Luca, and thank you for kind of giving us that insight too. And on the topic of that as well, Luca, we've actually got a fan question in, which is always exciting to see too. They wanted to ask you, like, what is your favorite maneuver to do whilst you're surfing, or what is like the hardest maneuver that you've like had to learn, and how did you go about learning it?
Well, I think for sure, I think that the hardest maneuvers are when you are doing the airs. There's a lot of types of airs. Like you can do 360s, you can rotate even more and do like a 540, and you can touch different types of your rail. So there is a lot of types of airs, which is not actually like what I do the most. So for me, it's been really hard to try to learn that kind of maneuvers because I come from a place where we have really long waves and really perfect waves. So when you have these kind of waves, you draw lines. Like when you're surfing, you kind of draw lines, and you have really good style, and you're like doing like really power maneuvers and like throwing a lot of water. So I started surfing doing that, like when I started surfing, I was just doing that kind of stuff. I wasn't doing many airs and stuff like that. So, of course, when you start competing, you have to be complete, you have to be good at doing the power maneuvers, and you have to be good at doing airs, and you have both waves. You can go left and you can go right. So you have to be good at both kind of waves. So it's a really big, like you can do a lot of maneuvers in a wave. So it's like you have to be good in everything. And for me, like the hardest I've been having to learn is for sure the airs. I'm still trying to learn and trying to get better on those airs because it's even harder to try to go in the heat and just say, okay, I'm just gonna go for it, and you don't even sometimes you don't know if you're gonna land it or not, but you just have to go for it, and sometimes I have had times that I couldn't land any, and sometimes I had time that I land one in the last second, and that made me go through the heat and everything. So I think that's one of the exciting maneuvers to do. Like when you do airs and you all the people that is watching you is like you're not really happy to see that. So for me, airs is like the thing that I'm trying to learn and trying to get better, so I can perform better.
Absolutely, and like we mentioned as well earlier, like practice makes perfect, and to be able to have the judgment, to have the balance, to have the skill, precision, and bravery, to execute those maneuvers as well is like what makes for me, surfing a really exciting sport, to now get to follow and to look into because of you. So you have to take a lot of credit as well, Luca, for that. But yeah, just it's so interesting and fascinating to learn how you take the approach to it, and obviously the big air moves as well require that extra kind of flair and precision, and being able to kind of make the right calls so you can execute the move and then get promoted to the next round. And it's cool as well that you've used kind of your natural surroundings in Peru to kind of even better you and to kind of give you that like advantage over the competition, because you mentioned that Peru has like one of the best waves, and it's like a consistent kind of like thing which enables you to try different styles and try different maneuvers which maybe other competitors don't get to do as well, which is really interesting. And then actually on the topic of that as well, we're talking about like the quality of the waves and how it varies from country to country as well. You mentioned earlier that you were like sometimes before a run you would you do like like an analysis of the ocean or of the waves, with your coach or engineers and stuff like that as well. Like how does your approach change, for example, if let's say the waves are not so good or they're very treacherous and maybe not so kind of consistent compared to maybe like the perfect kind of conditions for you, like where it's like very straightforward and you're gonna be able to like predict a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's why we analyze a lot the ocean before we going out. Like, of course, also we have to be ready for any changes because we're talking about the ocean. We kind of try to see where the waves are gonna break, but at the end of the day, it's not like an exactly thing. Like the wave can change in like any minute, so it can be changed by the time you go out in your heat. So we have to be prepared for any kind of change, in the water, and but for instance, like you say, when the conditions are hard, that's when you have to see the ocean the most because you gotta see your options. That where you're gonna go sit and where you're gonna go surf, and where the best ways are. Like even if it's bad, you have to choose like trying to choose the best. With the difference of like when you're surfing in perfect waves, it's like really straightforward. Like you see, okay, they're breaking over there, they're perfect, they're coming uh, anytime. So you just have to go there and just choose the best one and surf the best you can. But the opposite is when the conditions are bad and there are waves everywhere and the waves are not that good. So you have to see where you're gonna sit and if it doesn't come here, where you're gonna change and everything. So I think you have to analyze a lot more when the waves are not that good. So you have to see and have like not only one plan because like I told you, like the ocean can change. So you have to have like many plans of what you're gonna do in the heat and everything. So it's kind of hard. Like sometimes I like to take that approach, but I also don't like to analyze that much the ocean because I'm telling you like it can change in any moment. So I'm always thinking like, hey, just try to figure out where the best ways are, and when you're in the heat, just try to be the smartest you can, and just the opportunity that you have to surf the best because you never know what's gonna happen, in surfing.
Exactly, exactly. And it's interesting this that like you mentioned there as well, Luca, like a diversified approach. So of course you're looking at the situation, you're seeing that maybe this is the worst it could potentially be for these waves or the particular conditions. But at the same time as well, you don't like I guess narrow yourself down or just like accept that may just be the one and only type of scenario you get. And I think it's very incredible and impressive as well, from like even a normal person like me looking into the sport, that you have such a very all-encompassing and wide approach to that as well, because I guess you have to be versatile, you have to be able to think quickly and adapt to the sort of situations and circumstances you get in those competitions, and when you're presented with those opportunities where it might not be ideal conditions, but maybe through experience or through kind of being able to read the kind of competition a lot better. You look at other people's runs and stuff, and you can kind of get an inference or like a basic blueprint, and then for your own unique spin, be able to maximize the performance in that run as well. So it's really interesting. And on the topic of diversity as well, Luca, is another interesting fan question we've had in as well. For comparison's sake, like in football, we're seeing quite an emergence of like female like athletes being able to participate in like the female football competitions. In England, we have like a female Premier League at the moment as well. You've got like the female Euros, which is crazy as well because England are actually doing decent for a change. So I hope that continues. No shade at England at all, but yeah, what would you say the female surfing scene is like? Does it attract as much like viewers and as much excitement as the male equivalent? And in general, like, is there any differences, or would you say that like the male kind of version of the surfing and the female form of the surfing is the same in terms of the rules and the way they're judged and standards?
Well, uh, I think, for instance, I think it's been changing a lot. Like, it's improving a lot. Like, for instance, before in surfing, uh, they like when they're doing the stops, like the championships, they were making us surf like the men's will surf like in really heavy waves, and the girls won't surf in those kind of waves,
Hmm.
and now like they're trying to make like the girls actually surfing those kind of waves same as as the men's, so they're having like when they're having the tour of surfing, like they're having the same stuff like equal, like men's and girls, and the girls are actually like improving a lot, and they're actually charging and surfing really big waves and actually like doing really big scores and stuff like that. So I think that sport for sure like changing and making like the famous like get more like as equal, as the men's.
Hmm.
And in time, like if you talk about like prize money and everything, like now in surfing is like the same. So that's one good thing. If we talk about like how many surfers there is for sure more men's than girls. Like the tour has more men's than girls. Like maybe like in the tour there is like 34 guys and there is like 22 girls. So there's like a little difference because the sport is improving, like it's getting more known. So for sure in the future there's going to be more girls surfing and they're going to for sure improve and being better. So I think is in surfing the female side is improving a lot and is evolving a lot. And I think in the future we're going to see like girls that are going to be ripping and doing like maybe the same maneuvers as the guys. So yeah, I think that's what I think in the female side of surfing.
Well, man, that's really encouraging to hear as well, because even just in other sports, we see that they haven't really come that forward yet. They're not as progressive, or there are certain sports where there's a very old mindset, and through the older generation kind of moving on, the younger generation of like athletes like yourself are coming in, and kind of like doing the right things and saying the right things, and kind of inspiring not just the guys but the girls as well to give it a shot. And if they want to make it a career, and make it like a passion of theirs as well, that the opportunity is available to them as well. So that's super cool to hear. I think it's very encouraging, and even for our female listeners, if they've ever considered like surfboarding, or they're into kind of water sports generally as well, it's very refreshing to know that that door is open to them. And hopefully it's something, even as time goes on, it will become even more popular on both sides as well, because ultimately you want to see the best of the guys, you want to see the best of the ladies. In sports, you just want to see the best of the best, and that's kind of where the competitive element comes as well. So it's really interesting to hear that as well, Luca, and thank you as well for answering that one honestly. And then kind of like bringing it back to you as well, Luca, because I'm conscious of your time, and I think we definitely need to get you back on later in the year too, so we can follow up your progress. We can ask you some more questions. It's been a super fun and an eye opener for me as well. But what I wanted to put forward to you as well, Luca, is you mentioned that you're 26 years old, and you're still young, by the way. I'm 26 too, so I won't take any slander about us being old. We're still young. We're still young, man. But
Yes.
yeah, but what I wanted to ask you was like, what advice would you give to like either a younger version of yourself or even to kids growing up with ambitions to be as successful as you?
Well, I think I'm the type of athlete that has been working really hard. I come from a really small town, like you know, and I had to work really hard to get better in surfing and to actually get get like everything, like not only better, also like getting sponsors and stuff. Being from a small town, like I had a hard time when I was growing up, and I had to work really really hard. And for a kid, I think that working hard will always pay off. So I will always tell a kid that they have to work really hard for what they want if they want to compete, and they want to achieve their goals and everything. So yeah, work really hard. Don't stop. There's gonna be for sure hard times. There's always hard times in life and in sports, but I feel like when you're learning for those hard times, that's when you overcome and you get even better. So I will always tell the kids that they have to dream big, they have to make their goals, and they have to work really really hard to make them. And if you do that, there's for sure like a big chance you're gonna like make all your goals happen. So that's what I will tell the kids for sure.
Great advice, Luca. And I agree with you with everything you said there too. I don't even really need to repeat it because it's very clear. And like you mentioned as well, like if you have the right intentions, you put the work in, the effort in, you go with like a genuine mindset, and you're genuinely passionate about what you do as well. Like you're not doing it these days like just for the money, because that's unfortunately like a lot of people, they get into things just because like they think it's going to make them popular, or because like they think it's going to be easy paycheck. But if you go there with the right mentality, right attitude, and you continue to work, you focus on the areas you can improve as well, then the sky is the limit. And I think you've been a great example, and you continue to be a great example to everyone out there, Luca, in terms of being able to achieve it, being able to work towards your goal as well. Like you mentioned, you're not like from a huge billionaire like family, where everything's is given to you the golden spoon. You've had to earn and compete and prove to people why you're one of the best. And I think that is so inspiring, and I think a lot of people could learn and take that mentality as well. So we're super proud of you, man. And then kind of another question that came into my mind as well, just with the nature of what you do and stuff. And one, the penultimate question is, you've done a lot of traveling. That's like probably one of the coolest things of what you do as well. Like you get to go to so many different places and experience like, the beaches and the oceans and stuff like that too. But what would you say like were your top, how I'll do it, or how I'll ask you this, Luca, is what were your two favorite like beaches to surf at, and what were your two favorite countries to visit or to explore? And then I'll do the opposite, but I'll start with those two first. So two favorite countries, two favorite like beaches or waves or oceans to experience.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind always is like I always want to be home, so I will always put Peru first because
Mhm.
I think it's an amazing country in type of waves and culture and food and everything. But if I have to choose other countries, I think Indonesia is one of the places that I enjoy the most because they have the best wave in the world, I believe. So that's one of the places I try to go every year because not only for contests, just to enjoy and surf the best waves in the world. So I will put Indonesia in the top of the list, and then I enjoy a lot too when I go to Europe. Like when I surf in Europe, like when I surf in Portugal, France. Those places are really nice just because of the culture and the waves and everything. So that those two places will be like one of the best places in the world for me.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's interesting to get your take on that as well. And I love that you also put Peru number one as well. You're a good countryman and a great ambassador. So I'm very proud that you said that too. But also, like, let's flip it on its head then. And we don't need to be mean or like necessarily disrespectful. Just what would you say was like your least favorite kind of like country so far, or places you've been and you've been like. This is not as amazing as I thought, or places you wouldn't mind not going back to. I think is the polite way of putting it.
Eh, well, I think, for instance, one of the hardest places I've been to, and it's been really hard to just be there and just not for the waves and just like food and everything. It has been China when I had to go to compete in China. Like the food was totally different of what we eat and everything. So the waves weren't too bad, but the place was really hard to mostly to eat. Like it was really hard to eat like the stuff that you always eat, and the waves weren't amazing either. So that's one of the places that is I have a hard time when I go there. And then I don't know. I think like I enjoy everywhere I go.
Hmm.
Uh, Sometimes you don't like places because you haven't done well there in competitions, but that doesn't mean that the place is bad. It's just you that you haven't found a way of surfing those waves. But for sure, is like I told you, like China has been one of the hardest places to adjust on the time, on the food, and everything. Even speaking because they don't speak English too much, so it's really hard to understand them sometimes, and that's been one of the hardest places for sure to go.
Well, it's interesting to know as well, and I'm like another thing I'll say about you as well, Luca. You're super professional, man. I love it. Like like even the question, even the more tricky questions I've asked you, you've answered them in a very diligent and very professional way as well. So I really admire that. But yeah, I think I agree with everything you said there too. Sometimes it's not necessarily that you have a disdain or like a hate for something, but more so like maybe it hasn't worked out on that particular occasion, or there are certain conditions like you mentioned there as well, like the language barrier, the food, just kind of the nature of being in that particular environment that might not agree with you so much. And yeah, you find it more challenging. But then sometimes as well, and I could tell that you're the type of guy like the day that you kick everybody's ass at China, you're gonna be very happy, very proud of
Exactly.
yourself
Yeah.
because you've
Yeah, I actually
overcome.
ended up doing good there. Like I have a couple contests there, and I did really well, and I love the wave and everything. But it's for sure has been challenging to do everything there, like eating and speaking with people and everything. And so that's one of the hardest places. But at the same time, it's a place that sometimes you do good. So it's not. I don't think I hate a place at all, but there's places for sure that are really hard to stay in.
Of course, of course. I think that is almost what makes it refreshing and what makes it challenging, and kind of gives you a new perspective to kind of look at as well, rather than everything being like the same or easy or like repetitive. So I find that really interesting, and I'm super kind of impressed by your response there too. And kind of on the same topic as well, Luca, before we let you go, like, are there any countries or any like places you haven't visited that you'd like to go? I've had Georgina again back in my DM saying he needs to go to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has like she's like now protesting that Sri Lanka has the best wave. So maybe there might be a Peru versus Sri Lanka like battle one day. But yeah, are there any countries that you haven't been to yet that you'd love to explore and not just in terms of surfing, but just generally as well?
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of places in the world that I haven't visited and that are really amazing. I've never been to England either. I always wanted to be there, go there, and maybe even surf there. For sure, England is in one of my the top lists. I want to go to maybe Thailand or places like that, where it's an amazing place too for the culture and everything. I don't know. Let me think of other places that I've never been to. But it's like you say, Sri Lanka. I heard the waves are good too, and I have no idea anything about that country either. So it's always nice to go to new places and new countries because you never know what to expect, you know, and it's good to like explore new places. I also want to go maybe to Namibia. I don't know if you heard of Namibia. Namibia has
Yeah,
a really amazing wave, and I have never had the chance of going there, and that's one of the places I want to go surf one time too. And yeah, there is a lot of countries in my list, but that I don't actually have competitions in, so I have to actually put the time and go, you know, and explore.
man, I think it'll be a great exploration, and like you mentioned there too, like being able to like broaden your horizons in one sense as well. And man, well, I'm based in England, so anytime you're here at all, bro, let me know because I'd be fascinated to meet you in person,
Hmm.
and yeah, just to learn so much and spend more time with you, man, because you've been so amazing, and like I feel there's so much our listeners will be able to take away with this from this session, and hopefully some future sessions we can do with you as well, Luca. So, on the final note, like to round up this great podcast that we've done today, what does the rest of the calendar look like for you? And I know that you've actually got competition this weekend, but what competitions do you have like currently ongoing, and what ones are you looking forward to in the imminent future?
Well, I have still a lot of competitions this year. I'm gonna compete, like I say, I'm starting this weekend. The U.S. Open is one of the stops of the Challenger Series. After that, I'm going to Panama for a surf competition too. It's a Pan American Surfing Games. After that, I'm coming back to here to California for ISA World Games. It's gonna be in Huntington Beach, the same place I'm competing this weekend, and then I have to go after that to Portugal for another Challenger Series. I have to go to France, Brazil, Hawaii, and that will be the last contest in Hawaii.
And that is for no, like Luca. You sure you don't want to swap like careers or lives? Because I don't know how to surf at all, so I wouldn't I wouldn't be representing you well. But I genuinely would love to be in your position, man. That is so
Yes,
awesome, and
it's
that's
nice. It's nice, but at the same
exactly.
time, sometimes it's hard. You know, like I haven't been home, like home, since New Year's, so I haven't been there in like
Wow.
maybe 6 months or 7 months. So sometimes it's hard. Like it's nice to travel, but sometimes you're missing home and stuff. You know, but I'm lucky that of course, like you say, I'm doing what I love. So I'm happy to be doing surfing. You know.
Exactly, and actually on that note as well, because family is a very important aspect of life as well, and is often fundamental, to a successful athlete like yourself too. Like, how do you like make sure that the relationship with you and your family stays good? Like, is it a case that you try and like fly them over for some of your competitions? Is it just like a FaceTime call like every day or every other day? How do you manage that?
Well, both of my parents support me a lot. They have been supporting me so much through my entire career, so they know what I'm doing. They know that it's hard. That sometimes I cannot see them, but yeah, they travel with me sometimes. They go to a couple of contests. When I'm in Lima, which is the capital of Peru and not my home, I go there to be with my sponsors and doing a lot of stuff, training and stuff like that. They also fly from Ancora to Lima, so just to see me. And yeah, I don't see them that much like all the time, but they always figure out like a time to travel with me to a competition or just to go to Lima and visit me, you know, for a short time. But everything is like perfect. So yeah, that's what we try to do to stay together.
Oh, that's brilliant, man, and it's very refreshing to hear that too, because family are so key, and it's not something that could be understated either. It's so important to be able to have that balance of doing what you need to do, but at the same time as well making time for family, and then being able to share that experience with you as well. Either on tour or when you're back home, kind of competing locally, and they're able to kind of show up for those events too. So it's super important. But on that note, Luca, honestly, you've been an amazing star. You've definitely gained a new follower and fan in me. I'm gonna be making sure, like, I'm on all your pages, like,
Thank you.
just showing you support, and it will be the same thing for all of our listeners and viewers at home as well. You've put us on to a lot of knowledge, and hopefully, I mean, if you'd be happy to as well, I've got to ask you the question, perhaps towards the end of the year, maybe when some of the competitions are, not as, like, as, how should I put it, as, like, fierce as they are now, or as, like, how man, I'm like lost for the words right now. But when the competitions are not so, like, frequent, that's probably the best way to put it. We'd be happy to, and we'd love to invite you back on again, because there's so many other questions we didn't touch on, like commercially, the sponsorship aspect of it, and also other things about you and your approach as well. So we'd love to bring you back on again, in a very imminent future. But on that note, Luca, I mean, do you have any final words, like, you like to say to your adoring fans on a platform, and also for the new fans, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? Do you have a YouTube channel? Where can they get the latest and Lucca Mesinas?
Well, yeah, I have a YouTube channel actually, and it's with my name, no, Lucca Mesinas. I post a lot of stuff of my videos, competitions, training, blogs, and stuff like that. And then they can the social media that I use the most is Instagram, so I'm always posting stuff in Instagram. They can find me as Lucca Mesinas too. And then for everyone that is actually has heard of me and everything, just I want to thank everyone that supports me and watches me surfing and competing. Every single support and everything always helps. And for people that haven't meet surfing yet, I will tell them that it's a really amazing sport. I will always tell a person to try this sport because it actually is a sport that you don't, maybe you don't see it, or you don't, you sometimes you are lazy to do it because you have to put a wetsuit, or you have to go into the water and stuff like that and learn it. But once you get in the water and once you ride your first wave, you're gonna fall in love with the sport. So I will always tell a person that they have to try this sport and they will love it. So for the new fans, I will tell them that try this sport because it's an amazing sport, and yeah, get into it. And yeah, thank you to you guys too, and I would love to have another conversation in the future for sure.
Oh, Luca, you are the man. You are the legend, bro. Thank you so much. And like you said there too, I think there's gonna be a lot of us now rushing to our local beaches to obviously give surfing a try. And through your positive words and your encouragement, who knows, you've literally might have inspired the next world champion surfer. They'll be listening to this, they'll give it a try, and then it's something they'll love for the rest of their lives. And adore as, like, a career and a sport that they can dedicate their lives to as well. So I'm very, very appreciative and so thankful to you, man, for your time, and obviously management too. Big shout out to management for, like, loaning you to us for this time. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to catching up with you shortly too. Just as the year progresses, and yeah, giving you all the support in the world, man. You're an amazing guy, and we're super, super proud of you.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed having this conversation with you guys. Thanks a lot.
Ah, no worries at all, Luca. Thank you. And to all the listeners of the Stripping the Dipping Nation as well, we hope that you enjoyed this very insightful episode. Make sure, like we said, that you go and you follow Luca if you're not following him already, because he's already a superstar. And in that regard as well, just we wish everybody, the best of health, best of success. There's so many quotable things Luca said today that you could imply in your own life. So I definitely implore you, to take the advice and the positive encouragement that Luca's been able to share with us today. And it's phenomenal. It's really amazing when you can meet a top level athlete like Luca, and you can learn so much from them just by listening, and almost like actually living through them and their experiences and stories they say as well. So make sure you guys like, you subscribe, you share with a friend, share with a friend of a friend, share with your grandma. maybe your grandma should be out on the waves too. Maybe that should be a thing as well. So you're never too old. You're never too old. But it's been your usual co-host, AMG Dens, trying to ride the waves of success. And until next time, guys, thank you so much as always for your support and tuning in. And we'll be back with some more legendary content very soon. Peace.